Well, happy Friday, everybody. I know you probably have plans for the weekend. I trust those plans include worshiping King Jesus in church this Sunday as well. Today we are in chapter 50, last chapter in the book of Genesis, and congratulations. If you have been with us since January 1st and you've read each of these chapters, written in a journal or notebook what God has said to you, watched these videos, you have very methodically systematically made your way through the entire book of Genesis and probably learned things you did not know and had God speak to you about things that maybe surprised you a little bit. It's a great book, a lot of lessons for us, and more than anything, my prayer is that you have encountered Jesus. You've encountered the Lord as you've done this with us. So today, let's wrap up Genesis, and then next week we will start in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 1 in our New Testament reading plan. The headline that I wrote for chapter 50 is Emotional Scars. Emotional Scars. Jacob dies at the at the end of chapter 49, and tells his sons how to bury him and all of that, and it's interesting to me in this chapter, after they bury him and they get back from the funeral, his funeral is described in the first part of chapter 50. When they get back from the funeral, in verse 15, let's just read together verses 15 to 21 and then talk about it a little bit. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "What if Joseph bears a grudge against us and pays us back in full for all the wrong which we did to him?" Referring back to when they sold him to the Ishmaelites, and then he was taken to Egypt. Verse 16. So they sent a message to Joseph saying, "Your father charged before he died, saying," and here's what Jacob said to us, "Thus you shall say to Joseph, please forgive, I beg you, the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did you wrong. And now, please forgive the transgression of the servants of God, of the God of your father." And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. And then his brothers came also and fell down before him and said, "Behold, we are your servants." In verse 19, Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid, for I am in God's place." Verse 20, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good in order to bring about this present result, to preserve many people alive. Therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones." And so he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. It's interesting. They had already had their reunion with Joseph after all those years. He'd helped them resettle their families and livestock in Goshen, down in Egypt, and was taking care of them. And now their dad has died. And in their mind, they're thinking, wow, now that daddy is dead, Joseph, he doesn't have to worry about Jacob grieving if he got vengeance on us, but because dad's dead. What if Joseph now turns around and seeks his vengeance? He gets even with us for what we did to him all those years ago. They're afraid. And so they say to Joseph, before daddy died, he told us to say to you that we were wrong, we transgressed, and ask you to forgive us. Now, whether or not Jacob really said that, I don't know, but they said he did. And what this says to me is, one, after all these years, 20 plus years, I mean, what was it? 20, it's pushing 30 years now, over 30 years now by the time Jacob dies, since they had sold Joseph as a slave. And what they had done to Joseph was still in their mind, even though Joseph had reconciled with them and wept with them and loved them and taken care of them and provided them food and given them land. He had done everything he could to care for them. They still in the back of their mind felt some guilt. They knew they had done him wrong, and now they were afraid, once daddy's dead, will he get even with us now? Still some fear and anxiety there. And if Jacob, and let's just say they're telling the truth here, that their dad, that Jacob did tell them to go to Joseph and beg forgiveness and confess that what they had done to him all those years ago was wrong. the fact that they had conversation with Jacob about that shows that they still had some anxiety about it. It was still in their mind. And they were worried. Now, Joseph responds, look at the end of verse 17. It says, Joseph wept. So I asked the question, why did Joseph cry when they came to him and said all this? What was he crying because they were afraid and it just disappointed and hurt him that after all this and all he had done for them, they were still afraid of him? Was he crying because he was hurt that they did not believe that his love and forgiveness for them were real? Or both of those? Or was he crying because after all these years it brought up old memories that were hurtful and bad? He thought we've moved past that and it brought up these old wounds. Whatever the reason, Joseph is emotional and he cries. And by the way, one of the things about Joseph is you see Joseph's emotions throughout his story. Joseph was not a man who kept his emotions to himself. But he was also a man who did not allow his emotions to dictate how he behaved. So he expressed his emotions, but he was not controlled by his emotions. That's a good lesson for all of us. He weeps and then he reassures them, hey, I know that what you did all those years ago, you did it for evil. You meant evil. You weren't being good to me, you were being evil. But God did something good. God meant it for good. God took it and used it to save a whole lot of people from starvation, including all of you. And then he said to them in verse 21, don't be afraid. Don't worry. I'm going to take care of you. I'm not going to take vengeance. I'm not going to exact vengeance on you. I'm going to take care of you and your little ones, your children. And he spoke kindly to them. It's just amazing that the one who had been wronged all those years ago was now the one who was having to comfort the ones who did the wrong. Wow. So many years had passed. God had done so much to care for, to heal, and to bless Joseph, to care for, to heal, and to bless his brothers. They had seen and expressed and received so much love one to the other. And yet the scar of that one incident all those years ago was still there. One horrible moment, that betrayal. You see, the truth is, some wounds never totally heal. I have places on my body, some scars that remind me of accidents when I was a kid. Places where I got cut and had to have stitches. Some scars just don't go away, do they? But we do learn to live with them. And we do learn to love. See, forgiving and living and loving doesn't mean the scars don't go totally away. It means we learn how to live and love each other. And yeah, the scars are there, and every now and then we have to deal with it again. But they're there. They don't necessarily go away. But we can learn to love and heal. Now, let me say this. Prevention is easier than cure, okay, than healing. It's also better. So try not to do anything that cuts deep and leaves bad scars in the first place. But if you do, healing is possible. And you can learn to love each other and learn to live together, but you may never be 100% cured because that little scar will always be there to some extent. So guard against those deep cuts, but don't allow the scar to keep you from learning to love and live. That's the story of Joseph. So we all have those scars. Let's just minimize how many we create. And let's work hard at learning to love and live with the ones we do have. I mean, the alternative is not good, is it? I hope Genesis has been a blessing to you. I hope you'll join us next week as we turn to the Gospel of Mark in the New Testament and read Mark's account of the life and ministry of Jesus Christ. Be a radical change of scenery for the next couple of months as we read the Gospel of Mark. Look forward to that. Look forward to you being with us in Worship Sunday. God bless you. Have a great weekend, everybody.